So I've gone ahead and I have modified the length of this track, and you can see it is currently only 4 steps, and I have turned 2 of them on and I have 2 of them off. Now, I'll talk about length editing more in a second, but let's just focus on what we're doing right now. If you look over here on the scope, you can see, especially if I was to slow this down, you can see that every time the cursor encounters one of these steps, the control voltage, which is coming out of the step jack for that track, it will go high. It will jump up to exactly 5.0 volts. And whenever the cursor encounters a step that is not lit, so this would be this sort of lighter gray color, then the output jack will go back to 1.0 volt. In effect, a gate sequencer is really controlling when is a control voltage high and when is it low. And all of the step types, as well as editing the gate width, really are in service of deciding when you want that voltage to be high and when you want it to be low. Now, before I show you how to do that, you might be wondering, why does it matter if it's high or low? And I'll give you a couple of examples here. So I've added to my patch here an extra module. You can see there's now an envelope generator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to patch the output of this first track we have here into the envelope generator. And then I will maybe make some of these edits here for it to look like this. So you can see step out goes to gate in, and then we'll take the control voltage out from the envelope generator and I'll patch it here into the oscilloscope. So you can see as I do this, what the envelope generator here is doing is it's interpreting the high state, and I will show this by turning up release. It's accentuating the high state of the gate to be the attack and then the decay. And then after this control voltage here drops down to being 0, you can see that's when we get this release phase. You can see as I'm adjusting it here, we're getting different values, but the main idea that I want you to get out of this is when you think about your steps in Gate Nouveau, what you're thinking of is how does the step go into something else, and when do I want this to be longer or shorter? Okay, so with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about how you control the width of a step. Now, one thing that might have surprised you as you look here at this particular setup, you might have thought that on-off would result in a slightly different output. And in fact, maybe you thought it would look something like this. Now, I made a change and I edited the video, but looking at this now, you can see how the width of how long the signal is high for is equivalent to the width of how long the signal is low for. However, that is not the starting state or the default step width in Gate Nouveau. There is an important idea here. Now, I cleared this out, and so if we hit play, you can see I'm getting nothing. As soon as I add a step though, by default, when I create a new step by left-clicking on the grid, the step's width will be half of that time division. So think about it this way. Each of the steps that I have turned on right now, so I have 4 turned on right now, each of them represented the duration of a 16th note. Now, within that 16th note, how much of that time does this one step occupy? The answer to this question is actually controlled by this feature down here called width. So when I click on width, you can see that that button illuminates, it turns green. And once this is turned green, I can click on any step in my grid to edit that button's width. So I'm going to click this first one here. Now you can see a couple of things happened. First, this screen in the middle completely re-rendered and we're looking at a different view. And secondly, you can see that the width button is flashing. What's happening here is we are now in width editing mode. We are editing how wide is that first step. And you can see some of these buttons are brighter than some of the other ones. And in fact, you can see here if I mouse over one of the buttons with my mouse, in the bottom left of the LCD down here in this bottom left, it will tell you what the width is. So here you can see as I put my mouse here on this one, that would be 50% width. And I can move it out and I can see that, oh, if I was to click this one, for example, or this one, I would get 88%. This one, I would get 75%. So I'm going to click this one right here, this one on column number 10. What will happen now is when the cursor encounters this step, it will keep the voltage high for 75% of the width of the step. So I'm going to do a second one here. And you notice that I turn this one on, and remember this is going to default to 50%. And so you can see that second step, it's a little skinnier than it is wider. We can go in here and we can edit it. So I'm going to click on width and I'm going to click on the step. Let's set this one to 100%. So I'm going to click this last step here, right? Because think of this like a progress bar. So there we go. Now if you look, we've got one that's pretty wide and one that's even wider. I'm going to edit that first one. Let's make that 100%. And so now you can see as the cursor moves through, the amount that the gate for this step is high is equal to the amount that it is low. We could do the inverse of this, by the way. So I can go back to width here. I can shorten this down. Let's say I'll make this one 25%, and then I'll make the second one 38%. So there you can see as we go through, we're getting much shorter widths. Now, why does this matter? Well, kind of like I was showing you earlier with the envelope generator, the amount that it's high will allow you to turn something else in your modular patch on for that duration. It might be an envelope, it might be a sound sample. There are 100 different uses here. But one of the features of Gate Nouveau is this, and that you can edit the width of each step individually. Now, there's a couple of exceptions to this. We'll cover this in a future video, but try playing around with this for a little bit and see how you think of it and get a feel for it, and then come back for more.